You haven't been taken to the edge yet. The abyss. The place where you don't care anymore. Where all hope dies. Welcome back to Trails in the Sky the Third, everyone. I haven't ever actually seen the terrible animated killing joke, but that line is one of the most, possibly the most hilariously attempting to be edgy things I've ever heard. So yeah, we're back in the Abyss, and we are going to be here for a little while longer because it's a while. We've only beaten one fiend out of 4 here, and we need to do that for the Zemurian Ore, an achievement, and also Star Door 15. And that's gonna be its own whole thing once we get there. Yeah, of course, everything's only giving me items rather than armor and weapons, because I went and looked up all the drop rates here. The Kiseki Wiki now actually has really good information on most of the enemies in this game, and I looked up the drop rates, and yeah, they're about what I expected. They're like 0.2%. At least they were from the previous boss we fought, so yeah, I highly doubt I'm going to be getting any of them before this is over. You give me 2 Zins, really? Oh no, Thunder got kick. Well, at least it's not the broken version. Also, right back at you. I just realized that Estelle having the Mirror Quartz might mean that Taunt actually has a purpose on her. I never really use that, and most enemies tend to be immune to it, but it could be a possible strategy, I guess. Okay, if you drop your weapon, I'm going to be very surprised. Nope. Yeah, the rates are like, yeah, exactly 0.2%. But guess what? Spiders is back. This thing looks a little bit different, though. I guess it's because it didn't have its aura on the field. Yep, it is the same Arachne Zigma that we fought earlier, just different. Also, dead men, I guess? Dead man, plural. Dead mans would just sound kind of stupid, but now I can talk about... So I promised last time that I would be using the Abyss to talk about just my general thoughts on Kevin as a character and Sky the Third in general, because... My general thoughts in general, yeah. Because it's mostly just a lot of running down extremely linear hallways and just fighting things, so there's not a whole lot to talk about here, so now is the perfect time for me to mention all of this stuff. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that Kevin is essentially both the protagonist and antagonist of this story. It's one of the things I love about this game's storytelling, because it's something you don't often see in video games. Or stories in general, really. I am a huge sucker, again, for psychological character studies, and you don't get much better than that than a story where the protagonist and antagonist are the same person, and not like some kind of evil twin or clone kind of thing, but that actually the protagonist themselves, or at least some part of their own psyche, is unwittingly also responsible for the story's conflict. Again, thus making them the antagonist as well as the main hero. That's what it's like for Kevin, because Kevin's trauma created Phantasma and everything we've been going through. And the big bad of this game is the Lord of Phantasma, but as I said before, the Lord of Phantasma is really just Kevin. Even though it looks like Rufina, it's not really Rufina, and isn't even a copy of Rufina. It's more just how Kevin's own tortured mind wants to see Rufina. He wants to view her as somebody come to punish him for his sins, which, again, is not what the real Rufina would have wanted at all, or attempted to do, but Kevin's just become so twisted by guilt and self-hatred that that's what his version of her looks like. It all comes from him. And with that, again, being essentially the story's main villain, it's Kevin himself. It reminds me a little bit of, okay, there's this cartoon that I've never actually watched. I just looked at some info of it on TV Tropes and kind of absorbed a little bit of it via pop cultural osmosis, but I don't want to say the name of the show because it would kind of spoil how it ends, but how it ends is that the main character turns into a monster because of their own unresolved trauma simply from being the hero for the entire show. And they essentially are the final boss of the cartoon. And I think that concept would be really fascinating if applied to a video game. This is actually something that I wanted to talk about during Persona 4. I never really got the chance, because Persona 4 gave me so much to talk about, but I never really had much time for random tangents. But during Persona 4, I wanted to talk about the idea of Shadow Yu Narukami, like his shadow from the anime, and how it could have been integrated into the game. Like, maybe it could have been a mini-boss in the final dungeon. That would have been pretty cool. But then I got thinking that I would really love to see a final boss in a Persona game being, like, the protagonist's shadow, or like a manifestation of the protagonist's own insecurities and issues. The reason why that will probably never happen in a Persona game is because they keep the protagonists blank slates. They probably just don't want their self-insert, you know, kind of wish fulfillment character to have flaws. Or at least flaws that the player can't really project onto. It would take away from the universality of the character if they gave them something like that. So I can understand why it hasn't been done. But I still think it's a really cool concept. And the Lord of Phantasma in this game is, in my opinion, the closest thing we've got to that. So that is, yeah, what I wanted to talk about there, with the protagonist of the story also being the antagonist. I even added that to Kevin's TV Tropes characters page after I beat this game for the first time. I added Greater Scope Villain under his entry, saying that technically speaking, he is the one responsible for all of the conflict in Trails in the Sky the Third, making him unwittingly the Greater Scope Villain of that game. Hang on, are you immune? Doppel Estelle is immune to everything? That is unexpected. Okay. Well, I guess we get to see what this looks like when it doesn't have the flashy S-Craft, Wow, that looks really weird without the general S-Craft animations. Could you please turn into someone? It's a weird thing to say, but, yeah, I don't think I've really ever seen Doppel Estelle before. Oh, you're just, like, barely out of my range, too. Gonna have to walk very slowly forwards. I guess Joshua can, Supreme Flicker them both. As I was saying, though, I guess it's a reflection of Estelle's augment being completely neutral, and she's the only one who has one of those besides Ren, so yeah, just kind of interesting how that's depicted on these Grimoires by the copy of Estelle being immune to everything magical. That's really weird. But we're dealing with more things that are immune to everything magical later on. Now, if that was somehow the weapon drop, fish fillet, or fish fillet, as some people say. The other topic that I wanted to go into here is, why Sky the Third blew me away so much the first time I played it. I may have alluded to this a few times, and I did mention at the start of this, and a few other times that I think very highly of this game. It is still, having played every Trails game minus Reverie, which as of recording this hasn't released in English, Kuro, which haven't released in English, and the Crossbell games, which are coming out in English later this year as of recording this. I've played all of the Sky games and all of the Cold Steel games, and of all of those games that I played, this is currently my favourite Trails game. It was when I first played it, and now that I played Cold Steel 3 and 4, it is still my favourite. And it's not exactly a popular choice for favourite Trails game, because it's a very, I said this at the start, that it's a very atypical game in the series. A lot of people are into Trails for the NPC interactions and the world building and a lot of that. Apart from the doors, this game is very light on that. And a lot of people who are normally into Trails are quite turned off by the dungeon crawler aspects of this game. Carnage. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to stop my rant to talk about that, because that is totally new. And also kind of an interesting term from the trailer says, oh, I remember this one, strength plus 20%, defense minus 20%. So it's kind of like a more extreme ruby gem, a vastly more extreme ruby gem that also stacks with the ruby gem. So for example, if I really wanted to, I could, I guess I don't really need the wood gem. Oh, it actually doesn't stack with the ruby gem. Yeah, it counts as basically the level 6 version of that. Doesn't even give as many elements as the ruby gem either, so it doesn't mean that, it means that you won't be able to get Cyclone Napalm with just 1 quartz, so yeah, it's got its own pros and cons, but in fact, maybe I'm actually going to give that to Joshua, just because it'll give him a bit of a boost in strength for his F-Craft, which I probably should be using more. But yeah, a lot of people play Trails for the towns, the NPCs, the world and all of that, and the story, and they feel like this game's a bit light on those things, and that it's mostly just battling, and that's what I expected going into this game. So, in Trails of Cold Steel 2, this hopefully isn't too much of a spoiler, because this isn't really giving away a whole lot, but Trails of Cold Steel 2 ends with a dungeon that is basically just no plot, and you just get to play around with the entire cast for one last time. You get to use the entire party and every guest character, plus some new characters that you never actually got to play as before. And it's all for one dungeon called the Reverie Corridor that, like I said, is pretty much just pure dungeon crawling with no plot. In fact, the Reverie Corridor was originally going to be an endless dungeon. And in fact, I don't know if this is technically a spoiler, but Reverie kind of built on that concept with a place called the True Reverie Corridor, which is, I think it actually is an endless dungeon, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it could work like that. But basically, yeah, you've got this big plotless dungeon at the end of Cold Steel 2 that's just, hey, play around with the entire party one last time. And when I first heard of Sky the Third, I thought that it was going to be that except for the entire game. That the whole game was just going to be, hey, this is a final curtain call for the cast of Trails in the Sky. Just play around with all of them in a dungeon crawler that has basically no plot and no polish. I was expecting everything to be, like, almost all the assets to be reused from the earlier Sky games, including the music. And so what I got was a game that still is a final curtain call for the Sky cast that lets you play around with the entire party, including guests and including some characters that you never got, makes sense that Tita's immune to space, that you never got to use before, like Richard and Ren. But I was not expecting, one, most of the soundtrack to be brand new compositions, and that's a big part of why I adore this game's soundtrack as much as I do. Because there really isn't much reused music in this game outside of the doors. Everything else is brand new compositions. Did I actually got the Tita weapon. Okay then. Now how do I show that here, because Tita's not present and I can't leave yet? I guess it's in my inventory? Oh, here we go, weapons. Here we go, Merciless Rocket +1. I think it's actually weaker than the weapon she has currently. There's like a Merciless Rocket +2. Does give +5 speed though. Yes, there is indeed a Merciless Rocket +2, so that wasn't actually the best weapon she could have got. I'd say that Tita's Zemurian weapon is actually a good investment, just because of, you know, how much she just needs raw stats in her orbital gear. But yeah, and not only is this game full of brand new music, but you've got songs like this, like Masquerade of Lies is so fantastic. You have, like, the music for the Abyss, you have Stairway to Gehenna, which is one of the most tragic and just, like, oh, that song is just trauma in music form, and you'll definitely understand why once we get to Star Door 15. And even the main menu theme, the event music, like that song Cradle Where Feelings Rest, I think it is, the music that plays during Kevin's flashbacks, Overdosing Heavenly Bliss, and we haven't even heard the final dungeon and final boss themes, and those are yeah, if you thought the music in this game was good before, wait until you see those. Though if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you will have already heard this game's final boss theme. Because I consider it to be my favorite piece of video game music ever, of any game I've played. But if you haven't heard it before, well, I definitely encourage you to keep watching, because you will hear it, and it is just sheer... Like, in music form, it is just indescribably one of the best things that ever exists. That song is just, like... Trails typically has very good final dungeon and final boss themes, but the one from this game is on another level. Although, admittedly, Trails to Azure also has one of the greatest final boss themes of all time, so look forward to hearing that when that game officially localizes. So yeah, that's one reason why this game blew me away, the music, but also, I will say the gameplay, because this gameplay, I mean, it may not look like much to watch, but actually playing it, this is just the true final, like, I will say that, honestly, I'll say that the Sky gameplay is finally good. That's a bit of a bold statement to make, but Sky FC and SC, I think they're very good games that I recommend every Trails fan play, but you really are playing them these days more for the story than you are for the gameplay. Their gameplay is very basic, and arts are incredibly overpowered. Physical attacks are just not worth it, other than Thunder God Kick, but that's only worth it because it's bugged and doesn't work the way it's supposed to in the Steam version. But in the third, not only do you have access to, like, way more arts than you do in the main games, and a lot more accessories, a lot more potential there, but you also have physical attacks actually being good, as you can see by Richard, by, like, Agate being pretty strong, Orbital Guillotina, and even Estelle. One of the main problems that I had with Sky FC and SC was that Estelle was... For being the main character, and the one you were forced to use for pretty much the whole game, Estelle could only be described as aggressively mediocre as a party member. She, like, at the end of the day, I ended up just making her a support caster, because that was really the best you could do. It was kind of a shame, because again, not only is she the main character, but she's a really, really good protagonist, and I just wish she was more useful in battle. In the third, Estelle's massive strength and really powerful S-crafts have a genuine niche. You turning into Doppel Kevin is very good. Let me guess, you're immune to... Yeah, you're immune to time. They're pretty much immune to the main elements of their original augments. And going through these dungeons, like... Yeah, some people might not like it as much, but with the music being as good as it is, I will say that one of my main gripes is that I do think Chapter 6 is a bit too long. Honestly, I think you could actually get rid of... I'm glad you didn't use Grail Sphere, but I'm also not glad that you just killed yourself and, Reese couldn't finish you. They could have easily removed the first two dungeons in Chapter 6 and only had the Cassius and Swordsritter dungeons, and it really would have been fine, especially coming right before the very end, as in, you know, the real dramatic reveal of Kevin's full backstory. I understand if people do get a little bit turned off. But other than that, I feel like most of the dungeons don't overstay their welcome, and even the longer ones have fantastic music to keep you engaged. Chapter 4 is one of my favorites in the game, because not only do we get our first indicator of Kevin's stigma, but we also get 3 dungeons, all of which have amazing music, and they're all just actually kind of creative concepts for dungeons too, even if they are partially reused. So yeah, that's my tangent on that. I think the dungeon crawling and battle gameplay is all excellent in this game. Now for this battle, I would really like somebody to have Earth Wall. I'll swap those out just so that Estelle can be a fast Earth Wall caster, and how's her speed's actually very good. In fact, her speed's the highest of everyone I have here. Okay, let's fight this dangerous fiend. So we are facing a whole enormous crapload of these Dullahans, which can inflict instant death, and also they have Evil Eye, which can cause mass delay, which is really, really bad. Also, speaking of really, really bad, I forgot to heal Richard. That was incredibly stupid. Okay then. Huh. And Estelle no longer has Zodiac. Okay, I can only hope that we get things in before really bad stuff happens. Okay, so... Oh yeah, I also forgot to show, we're also facing off against Beelzebub. Not the one from SMT. This thing basically has this thing called Great Collapse that is a massively powerful art that will pretty much just party wipe you, so that's why I wanted a fast Earth Wall caster here. Probably should have put the time gem on Estelle now that I think about it. I can use Fragrant Juice on... Oh, actually, wait a minute. If I move Joshua, then Reese is not going to get in the Earth Wall. But I am going to be going for Joshua's S-Break here. Resist because he has Deathblow accessories on, because he has the Death Quartz, so that would have been Deathblow, but again, resist. I could, like, kind of... No, I think I actually really, really need to just heal Richard. I have way too many tier all bombs. Swarm of Evil! That can inflict either Seal or Mute, and I got the Seal on Richard, which is obviously the worst thing that could possibly happen. Demonic Lance can inflict instant death, and, well, it one-shot him anyway. See, I researched these enemies in advance, but I also forgot how many Dullahans there were in this fight. I thought Dullahan was a standalone boss. Oh, don't kill Estelle, please. Of course you killed Estelle. And yeah, Beelzebub can also divide itself. It looks similar to an enemy in the final dungeon of Trails in the Sky SC. Okay, I have another Calamitous Blast, but that's not going to come anywhere close to finishing off these guys. Actually, will it? Maybe it will. This is a major gamble, one that I could quite easily lose. But remember that Holy Blessing is also a revive. I don't often use it for that purpose. Oh no, it didn't even come close to killing the Dullahans. I just have to hope that they're too far away from Reese, or they're all traffic jammed and can't do anything. Kind of like, I feel like the knights earlier could, like the knights earlier, we fought earlier in Phantasma did that. Okay, and then Reese is going, how much health do you guys have left? Not a lot. Alright, so I can probably safely go ahead and... Oh yeah, I've got a lot of Celestial Bombs. Let's bring Richard back. I would use... I mean, I can try this. I don't think it's going to finish off the field, though. Or, there are enough enemies for me to do the Infinite Joshua S-Break trick. There aren't any more, but that's a small price to pay for all of the instant death people being gone. So now we just have the two Beelzebubs left, and they happen to be weak to Dark Matter EX, which is excellent. So yeah, this can be a very, very hectic fight also. It doesn't look like you guys can be pulled by Dark Matter. I mean, Estelle is honestly already pretty high level as is. It's not going to be a priority of mine to revive her just yet. Swarm of Evil! Okay, good, Mute, that's better. But you know what? I'm going to take this S-Break just to see if I can finish off one of you. I probably should have waited for the 10% strength turn, though. Didn't notice there was one of those coming up. But I think it's dead anyway. These things can also drop the ultimate stuff with like a... Yeah, I'll S-Rep with Joshua. Sorry, Estelle, but you're missing out on the experience here. Actually, no, you're not. I can get you back up. Yeah, the version of that inflicts Mute and the version that inflicts Seal are actually in the game's code as two completely different crafts, even though they have the same name. But I guess it makes sense from a programming standpoint for them to have done that. And nope, did not finish you with an Estelle bonk. I was going to say bonk triumphantly there, but no. But there goes Beelzebub. I think the katakana for its Japanese name is a little bit different to the Beelzebub from Shin Megami Tensei, and I only know that because Shin Megami Tensei Beelzebub's name sounds really, really dumb when it's said in Japanese voice acting. As I heard in the Nocturne remaster, it sounds like Beelzebubu. It's just like Beelzebubu. I think it's time to say goodbye to Beelzebubu. I can't take it seriously, like, ever since I heard that. But we're down another layer of the abyss, and I think we can afford to keep going. So, further into the linear hallways of doom, and now with even more spiders. And Better Nucleus. But in terms of my last Trails in the Sky tangent, the one that I really wanted, Trails in the Sky, the third tangent I mean, that I really wanted to get to, so I went into this game with very low expectations. I expect this game to just be pure, like, kind of just pure fan service, borderline, I would say cash grab, but I don't think that the Sky games had enough of an audience to really justify calling it a cash grab. But you got the idea, pandering, that's the word I'm looking for. I expected this game to be basically just pandering to people who liked the Sky games and just wanted one more Sky game, and not to have a lot of effort put into it. And what I got was not only a game that had refined gameplay compared to the first two Sky games, an amazing soundtrack, far better than it had any right to be, but also some of the best storytelling and character development I have seen in any JRPG in Kevin's story. Kevin's story is one of my favorite things. Other people said in the comments they also really love Kevin and his plot, and I'm really glad I actually got Kaleido armor. Okay then. It may have a higher drop rate from Bennu. Wait, is that actually... It's male only. Huh. It's mostly because I know that there's like a obscure Fate spin-off that has a magical girl called Kaleido Ruby, so I always associate the word Kaleido with magical girls. But yeah, plus 5 speed, plus 80 strength, and a lot of defense. It's worse for strength than the Yagd armor though, so yeah, I guess Joshua takes that. Kaleido armor plus 3 too. Now excuse me while I pause my tangent, and go and look up how rare of a drop that was. Yep, it's a base drop rate of 0.2%. Quinty Ribbon. Is that like a ribbon in Final Fantasy? Probably not, because that would be the Grail Locket in this game. Maybe that's actually female only. Looks like it is. A special ribbon that only certain characters may equip. Plus 10 speed, plus 50 ATS. Of course, it's worse than a Crimson Eye, though. Looks like Estelle doesn't have access to it either. That's kind of weird. I actually forgot about this accessory from when I first played, but yeah, it's worse than Crimson Eyes on Reese, so I'm going to keep it with these. And yeah, Kevin's story was like the... What's the reverse of the term, like, last straw? As in, like, rather than, like, the last thing that made me hate something, that was the kicker that just made me absolutely fall in love with this game. So, that was it. I went into this game with very low expectations, and it completely blew me away. It turned out to be something that I was not expecting at all. And that is why it's currently my favorite Trails game. That may change when I play Zero and Azure. I'm still trying to keep a very open mind about those games, because I hear them, like, praised to high heaven by a lot of people, saying, like, they're definitely the best in the series, and I really don't want to get a hype backlash. I've said a few times in discussions between myself and some other Trails fans that I'm trying very hard to make sure that those games don't become a 1000-Year Door or Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers to me, because, and I know this is harsh, but I've said this in the past, that 1000-Year Door and Mystery Dungeon Explorers are games that I have heard people, like, on the internet praise so, like, I have heard people gush about those games so ridiculously much that I simply cannot play them, because they would inevitably disappoint me. Like, there is no way they would live up to people's expectations, and, like, so, it's just kind of, and I know there are a lot of people out there who love those games, and I don't have anything really against those games, but it's just that, it's just this weird feeling I get when, you know, something has just been praised so much. That is not the same without her voice acting, I'm sorry. So when you hear something praised that much, like, it's weird. Like, I almost get the feeling of not wanting to play it almost out of spite. Like, that makes it sound even worse, but it's... Anyway, like, excessive praise for something, like, I kind of liken it to why so many people were turned off. This is a really, really weird side tangent, but, why so many people were turned off, whoops, that was terrible. Push that thing out of the area, please. Somebody please push that out of the area. But, like, I liken it, the feeling to how so many people, like, it became cool to hate Friendship is Magic on the internet for a while, just because a lot of its fans were being so obnoxious about praising it. Undertale suffered from the same thing as well. Like, people just shoved that into every single conversation on the internet, and it was a shame, because Undertale was, like, I genuinely think that Undertale is very good as its own thing, although I haven't actually played it myself, so I'm a bit hypocritical saying that. It's just that I understand why people would come to dislike it just purely based on how annoying its fandom could be. And yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I want to avoid having towards Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, because at the same time, I also see people who say, oh, actually, those games are bad and everything wrong with Cold Steel originated there. So I'm trying to, again, keep an open mind and go into them very neutrally. Go into them with neither expecting them to be good nor bad, and just see how I end up feeling about them, objectively speaking. Because I went into this game with no expectations at all, and it completely... Well, actually, I went into the game with low expectations and was surprised. Yeah, what am I saying? Yeah, this has just been the part of me just kind of rambling on a lot, but, I normally don't like it when that happens. Like, this is just a little bit of behind the scenes. It's something that I've regretted from my Path of Radiance playthrough looking back, is that a lot of the time I ended up just going on random tangents about just things not related to the game, and I find that when I am doing that, it is a sign that the game is not giving me much to talk about. It's why I actually really enjoyed my Persona 4 playthrough, because in that game, I went through over 120 parts. It's like so many hours of footage, and I never once had to resort to off-topic tangents. I never ran out of things to say there. And I think it's also a good sign that that's pretty much been the case for Sky the Third until now. It's just that you probably can't really blame me for now being a point where I don't have much to say about the gameplay, because, you know, you can see what the Abyss is by now. It's really just a grinding area and not much more. It's just big linear hallways full of enemies that you just kind of fight over and over and hope you get drops from them. Honestly, at this point, this party is pretty much set for the final dungeon. We don't really need to fight anything at all, so I can skip basically all the enemies here. And yeah, that's what I wanted to leave to this part. Just a little bit more talking about Kevin, and also, I suppose, yeah, I do personally find... I'm going to fight this thing just in case I drop something, but yeah, I do find... Some people have said in the comments about Kevin and also a lot of things that are... I would say about Trails in general, but really it's mostly the Sky arc, because the later arcs get a little bit more, for lack of a better word, generically anime. But the Sky arc is very good at being fantastical while at the same time being very grounded. Like Weissman as a character. Like, he's a fantasy villain, but at the same time, there's a lot of parallels to real-world cult indoctrination or even, like, child soldiers with what he did to Joshua and Ren. And it kind of saves him from just being a boring, generic villain. And at the same time, we've got Kevin's story, where Kevin, I just find, like, the stigma is fantastical, but what it represents really isn't. And I think this game deals with themes of trauma and guilt and self-hatred and mental health issues quite respectfully. This is a bit of a cliche thing to describe a story as, but this story I feel has a maturity that's to its themes that I find some JRPGs lack. I was about to say especially nowadays, but I mean that makes me sound like I'm like, oh, back in my day. And like honestly, I'm actually not a Cold Steel hater. From what I remember, I haven't actually played the original 2 Cold Steel games since, thank you for the Zerum Capsule, since 2016. They were the first Trails games I played. I played Cold Steel 1 and 2, and then I went back to the Sky games just because I didn't want to be, you know, that guy who only plays the new accessible games and doesn't look at a franchise's history. So I basically did the Trails equivalent of play a real Shin Megami Tensei game and played Sky. But I ended up really enjoying the... Well, I mean, okay, I didn't actually enjoy Sky FC the first time I played it. I actually really disliked Sky FC the first time I played it. And it was only on replays that Sky FC is now my second favorite game in the series, after this one. Because I just think it's a surprisingly effective standalone story, and it's actually quite grounded with its conflict, which is something that you don't really get in the later entries. Okay, I'm a little bit scared about this, and in fact I really want Estelle to have Zodiac again. Just to be safe, I'm gonna spread out for this one, just in case they have any dangerous area attacks. This one I think just has a lot of powerful physical attacks, and I think it can delay you as well. So we are facing, this time, Akamana, which comes from, I think, the personification of evil thought in Zoroastrianism, and Flying Knights. Now, these things' Japanese names are Furaito Naito, which I think is a pun that can mean either Flight Knight or Fright Knight. And I actually think Fright Knight would have been a better translation, because they're, I don't normally criticize XC, I think XC are fantastic, but I personally would have gone with Fright Knight because, you know, they're kind of bat demons. It sort of makes sense. Oh yeah, they can inflict morph, so that's a bit of a thing. You can run from these fights if you feel like you're unprepared, which reminds me a lot of the monsters on the road back in the earlier Sky games. That thing is very weak to space. But I would like to get rid of the Flying Knights first. They don't have much health, and that makes me very suspicious that they're about to do something terrible. I think I'm just gonna go for... Try that. And now Estella's gonna Zodiac. I really want Joshua to S-break, but I want him to have a strength buff. So I guess I'm gonna have to use my last Fried Phoenix. I was about to think, like, what, if phoenixes are an endangered species you shouldn't be eating? And then I was thinking, oh wait, of course not, they come back to life. I think this thing can summon more of them, though. In fact, I'm positive that it can summon more of them, because I just read up on its stats on the wiki, and yes, it does have a move that summons more. And now all the things that I actually... Oh no, I can still debuff your art's defense. Don't one-shot Richard, please. Yep, Seal, that's a thing that can happen. And that's why I have a whole lot of Fruity Temptations, because they restore your status, which is useful. preparing to use arts. Okay, then I think that's actually just Cocytus. Just Cocytus. The moment that I say just, it's probably going to turn out to, like, one-shot my whole party, so, yeah, let's... I'm gonna try using Dark Matter EX on you. Okay, you actually can be pulled in. That's good to know. But now that Richard is buffed and can do this, this devil is not long for this world. This is the thing that was showing up, like, all over the place when Gilbert was running in back in Gehenna, so... yeah, imagine having to fight an entire army of these. We are slowly chipping away at it. I sort of want it to keep going for Estelle, though, because then it has a chance of reflecting its attacks. Oh yes, so super, 666 HP is something that, we would never be able to outdamage this late, but then, you know, you got a 10% heal turn, and that healed you for way more. Let's just, put a Dark Matter on you. The funny thing is that I actually think that Dark Matter and Dark Matter EX have the exact same animation. Dark Matter EX just pulls things in. Kind of feels like Dark Matter EX was the real Dark Matter. Like, it was kind of their attempt at course correction. It was like, okay, this is what Dark Matter always should have done. Forget the original Dark Matter that was only single target despite looking like an area attack. Because, yeah, the original Dark Matter was a pretty lame art. Yep, that's Kukai. Don't kill us, please. Okay, it wasn't anywhere near as dangerous as I thought it would be. Of course, it is going again soon. I would like some crits here, please, Richard. There we go, that's good. Another Dark Matter. If we get it any lower, I might be able to just, S-Break spam to finish it. So I don't think S-Break spam's gonna work now. Okay, yep, that's another, I almost called it a Fright Night. I can just instantly kill it with Richard, but, no, I think I'll have Joshua S-Break first. Because that'll get rid of it and do some damage to this guy at the same time. Now, let's go Joshua S-Break. Okay, preparing to use arts, that's fine. Actually, hang on a minute. I haven't shown Supreme Hard Break yet, which also cancels. Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be gone before it gets a chance to do much to us. Maybe you can actually end this and give me the higher chances of drop. Although I didn't equip the Phantom. I unequipped the Phantom Thief's cape and I still got that 0.2% drop earlier. I am fighting a lot of enemies that have those drops, but still, that's kind of ridiculous luck. Though I doubt I'll be getting any more of those. See, I don't think it dropped anything at that point. Yep, no drop at all. Apart from the Zamarine Ore, which obviously is the best thing of all. Except not when you have Reese's weapon. So now we've defeated 3 out of the 4 Fiends of the Abyss. And there's only one more left.